We are 2 days into the VCT Americas Stage 1 playoffs. We already know the two teams that are going to Shanghai, and that is G2 and 100 Thieves. These playoffs are just getting started, and already we've seen some incredible results. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about the first 4 matches of the VCT Americas Stage 1 playoffs. These are the 4 matches that we have on the board, and there is a lot to talk about, and if you're a Latin American fan, I am sorry. So starting off with G2 versus C9. Now this was a match that I did predict C9 to win, and honestly my entire bracket is pretty much already in shambles, but this is a match that C9 was definitely favored to win. They had a much better split from G2, G2 only getting into the playoff stage because they won 2 more rounds, at least in round differential, than Sentinels. So G2 kind of backing into the playoffs and C9 coming into the playoffs off of a win, granted against MIBR, but still a win. They came in a lot harder than G2, but what I saw with C9 and what I talked about in my playoff pick'ems video was the fact that I didn't know if I saw this team's way of winning as something very sustainable. C9 would always start matches slow, they usually lose the first map, and then they just end up grinding out games, but that is something that other teams can adjust to, and G2 did an incredible job at doing that. Looking at map 1, which was Lotus, we had G2 taking this one pretty convincingly 13-6. C9 did actually start this map pretty well, winning the first 4 rounds, but then the switch flipped and G2 just took control, only allowing 2 more wins on the side of C9, just taking it to them on their attack side and on their defense side as well. And I just want to say one thing. I know that esports teams tend to talk a lot of trash, and we see players get up off of their seat and yell at the other team like, "You suck, blah, blah." I know that's a thing that happens a lot, but for C9, they gotta calm it down. They were acting way too cocky with really not a very big lead at all. Even after the pistol, Oxy made a joke being like, well, pistols won, it's over, right? And I know it's a joke, and I know it's not something I should overreact to, but it just kind of showed, and even 4 rounds in, they were still yelling at G2, being like, you guys suck. Again, I get trash talk, you gotta calm that down, because that karma's coming for you, and it came for C9 in this match. I understand the mind games, but sometimes it's just too much, and the other team can use it to their advantage, and that seems like exactly what G2 did. Then moving on to Ascent, this one was a lot closer going into overtime, but G2 definitely seemed in control for most of this map. 15-13 win in favor of G2 on their map pick. G2 starting strong, going up 6-1 7 rounds in, but then C9 would claw their way back. 7-5 at the half in favor of G2, and then C9 did have a pretty strong attack half, winning 7 rounds on attack, G2 winning 5, and then we going into overtime. C9 were able to get 1 round win in that overtime, but it just wasn't enough. G2 take this. Looking at the team MVPs, I am very happy to see Icy on the board for G2. I have been critical of his play early on in the split, which I do think was totally justified, and I wasn't saying that he sucks, I was just saying I think that would have been the better option. Icy doesn't look like he's that dynamic duelist that this team really needs, but he has looked fantastic through these playoffs so far. Absolutely applause to him, you love to see it. In this match, he went 40, 28, and 9 for plus 12, so he was top fragging, and he wasn't dying very much. On the side of C9, we have Moose. He went 35, 34, and 4 for plus 1, the only positive on C9. With this loss, C9 are now eliminated from the playoffs. This was the knockout stage, so this was single elimination, which is a format that I don't agree with, but it is probably due to Riot trying to get these playoffs done as fast as possible before Shanghai, because if you have every team go through double elimination, then it takes a long time, and I guess they want to have this done by like Sunday. So fair enough, Riot. C9 unfortunately are out. If this was double elim, do I think that they would have recovered? Probably not. C9, they just tend to collapse in the playoffs. This is starting to become a trend where they have really good regular season splits and then they just fall apart when it matters most. Not that G2 didn't absolutely play really well today, but C9, again, I just didn't see their winning as something that looked sustainable, and I've kind of been proven right here. We'll see if they prove me wrong in the next split. And I'll go a bit more in depth about G2 in their second match that we're going to talk about for them, but this was a great way to start playoffs. You didn't enter playoffs in a very dominant fashion. You get in because you won the tiebreaker, and then you start to prove everybody wrong. This was a fantastic way to start, and I'm so happy to see this roster doing well. Moving on to 100 Thieves versus Loud. We have 100 Thieves taking it to them, 2-0. Not only was this a 2-0 victory, this was a dominant win on the side of 100 Thieves, who look way better than they did at kickoff. This also was apparently Les's last match as a member of Loud, which I think is stupid, but we'll get to that later. I definitely had some confidence in Loud going into these playoffs. They looked like they had recovered from what was a very slow and sluggish start to the split. They were starting to play a lot better by the end of it. They do end up winning their last 2 matches to qualify for playoffs. And while they didn't exactly look like world beaters, they definitely looked like a team that was starting to find their form again. But 100 Thieves are a team that have been in form for quite some time now. They've looked incredible this split, and Loud, they definitely had to take it to them and be ready for Boostio to just outcall them. 100 Thieves were definitely more prepared and more motivated for this fight. Not that Loud wasn't motivated, but it just seemed like 100 Thieves always had control. Looking at the first map, we have Bind. It was a 13-6 win in favor of 100 Thieves, their map pick as well. And while Loud did win the pistol, the second round, and the bonus, 100 Thieves just started going on a streak there, winning 8 rounds in a row to take a commanding lead. And I know that 8-4 isn't a huge lead at the half. That still is pretty good, especially when you go on a streak of winning it. When you have those win streaks, it can just completely take the wind out of the other team. That's exactly what it did against Loud. Loud do win the last round of the half. They win the pistol and the second round, but they just can't stop just the freight train that was 100 Thieves. They do win 5 rounds in a row to close it out, and they take the first map. Moving on to Icebox, this was even worse for Loud, especially considering that this was their map pick. 100 Thieves went on yet another win streak, winning the first 6 rounds in a row, ending the half 10-2, not giving Loud anything on their attack side. Again, Loud win the pistol, they win the next round, but 100 Thieves, they really didn't need much, so they just needed a little bit of momentum, and they got it. It just seemed like 100 Thieves were always in control in this match. Loud just could not stop just the momentum that 100 Thieves were getting. They were getting outcalled, they were getting outplayed, 100 Thieves were hitting all of their shots, and it just seemed like Loud couldn't do anything. Looking at the MVPs for both teams, we have Cryo, who is having a fantastic playoffs, and this was an incredible start to it. 47, 15, and 5 for plus 32. One of the best matches of his career, to be completely honest. Probably the best match that he's ever played as a member of 100 Thieves. On the side, we have 2Es. There wasn't a lot of good numbers on Loud for this match, but he did go 26, 27, and 13 for -1. Just like G2, I'll get more into 100 Thieves when we get to their second match, but they absolutely looked fantastic. They are in Shanghai, as we know, and they look completely different from how this team looked last year and even at the beginning of the year. And on the side of Loud, it would feel weird to not just focus on the benching of Les. I know this team has had a rough split. I know Les definitely has not looked the same that he did even at Madrid, but Les is still one of the best players in the world. He's one of the best Brazilian players in the world, and the word is that that change is going to be because of financials. I guess Loud doesn't think they can afford him anymore if he's not just putting up insane numbers. This just feels weird if it's based off of performance, because everybody from Loud has had a bad split. And I think with Les leaving, I do think that this kind of signals the end of Loud being a dominant team in Valorant. I don't think this is going to make Sadek very happy. I'm pretty sure he's pretty close with Les, and was even, there was some word that he was even training Les to be the next IGL of Loud when he eventually leaves. So that's gone now. I just find it weird. I think there were problems with this team that we were seeing throughout this split, but I don't think this team's bad record was Les's fault. And I understand that it's a business, and if you don't think you should be spending a ton of money on a certain player, fine, I get it, but it just sucks that something like this is affecting a player of that caliber. Les is way too good to not be on a tier 1 team. I'm sure he'll get picked up. And with Loud and their future, I don't know what you do without him. I know Sadek's a really good IGL. There are good free agents that are Brazilian that you could bring in, but it's just not the same without Les, and yeah, I don't know if this team's going to do much without him. Anyway, moving on to the next match, the 2 matches that happened today, we have G2 versus Crew. Now, a lot of people favoring Crew in this matchup going into it. Crew, of course, being one of the best teams during the regular split, going 5-1 against the other group, nearly undefeated, only losing to Leviatan. But this result being a 2-0 win in favor of G2, while it is quite surprising, it also maybe shows that people have short memories. If you remember back to kickoff, G2 played Crew twice because they were in the same group in the kickoff bracket, and G2 kind of took it to Crew. I think one of those games was pretty close, but it was the first one, and G2, it just seems like maybe they just have Crew's number this year, because Crew did not look like the same team that we've been seeing throughout the split, and G2 also didn't look like the same team that we've been seeing throughout the split. They looked way better. They were on point during this match. And that might be because the map pool did kind of favor G2. Crew ended up picking Icebox, which is one of G2's best maps. I guess they felt confident against them on it, but that confidence very quickly died. 13-5 win in favor of G2, not even allowing double-digit round wins on the side of Crew. This was kind of just a stomping, 8-4 at the half in favor of G2, going on a couple different win streaks, and then only allowing Crew to get one win on the defense side. G2 take this one pretty easily. And then Ascent was a little bit closer, a little bit more in the favor of Crew, but it just never seemed like they were hitting their shots. It never seemed like they were in control. They weren't playing with the same confidence that we've seen throughout this stage from them. And it just seemed like G2 were thriving in that underdog role and ready to absolutely crush this team. Crew do win the pistol and the next round, but G2, they get one, they lose one, but then they go on a streak of winning 5, which pretty much just gave them all the momentum. Crew did end up tying it at the half 6-6, and then they won the pistol the next round, but then yet another win streak from G2, winning 8 in a row. Crew would tie it up at the half and then winning the next 2 in a row, but then G2, they were like, all right, enough of that. They took control. They won 7 rounds in a row to take this one. Looking at the team MVPs, very happy to see Leaf on the board. He went 44, 22, and 7 for plus 22. Fantastic match from him. And you could have put other members of G2 as well. Everybody was absolutely fine. And on the side of Crew, surprising to not see Kesnet or Heat or Klaus even. We see Melsner going 31, 31, and 13 for a plus negative of 0. Crew now go down to the lower bracket. They will have to face Leviatan, but we'll get to that match later. For G2, I'm so happy to see this team doing well. This team has been through so much as a roster. They decide to not go to the franchise league right away. They make their way through tier 2. They win Ascension. They have a pretty bad kickoff, a pretty mediocre split, and all of a sudden, they play the underdog role extremely well. They play spoiler to C9 and Crew, 2 teams that had high expectations for these playoffs. And all of a sudden, they're in Shanghai. We're going to have 2 North American teams at Shanghai, and it looked like it might have been a possibility for literally no North American team to make it there. And G2 potentially is the best one. I do think 100 Thieves have had a harder bracket so far in these playoffs, but it's so nice to see this team doing well. They're pretty much the only Ascension team throughout all 3 of the leagues that actually is making a pretty big dent in their league. Most of the other Ascension teams are either doing okay or really bad. So it's great to see that teams from tier 2 can come up and look very good. And I'm so happy to see this. They're going to be at Shanghai. First time since 2021 for this roster. And that was a heartbreaker for them. If you remember that, it was the Guard. They looked incredible in the North American split, and then they get to Reykjavik, and then they lose to Optic, and then they lost to like Paper X or something. They just got fried. So hopefully that doesn't happen to them again. They're now at the first international in a very long time. They're first in tier 1 after the franchise league start. And I think that they can do some damage. I think this team absolutely is underrated. I think they're talented. And if they continue to play this underdog role very well, they could see themselves potentially lifting a trophy. I'm not going to say that yet. I'm not going to say that I think that that's going to happen yet, but anything is possible in the world of Valorant. And for Crew, listen, this is disappointing, but this is what I was saying before this playoff started. I know that this team looked very good during the split. They looked absolutely fantastic, but the playoffs, it's a different beast. When the games really matter, when the stakes are super high, when everything is on the line, when qualification for an international tournament is on the line, things change. It's not the same as playing Evil Geniuses at the beginning of the split. It's not the same as playing MIBR or Furia. It's not even the same as playing Leviatan at the end of the year to basically establish yourself as the top team in the league. When push comes to shove, things are a lot different. That's why I was saying, even if this team collapses, I'm still proud of this team. If they lose in playoffs, if they lose to Leviatan tomorrow, I will still be proud of this team because they looked way better than they did at any point during 2023, even during LCQ. And if they don't make it to Shanghai, there still is a lot here to build off of. And I know the fans will be disappointed, but I did set my expectations for Crew quite low just because I just didn't feel like they were really going to get there. But we'll see. They could still see themselves in Shanghai, but they have quite the opponent to face. Moving on to the last match we have to talk about, the only really close match in this playoff so far, 100 Thieves versus Leviatan. This was a 2-1 victory in favor of 100 Thieves, looking very close a lot of the time. While 100 Thieves were in control for large parts of this match, Leviatan did not make it easy on them. That last map especially was very close. It could have gone either way, but 100 Thieves were showing some very impressive, not only just skill, but also resilience. And that is a very important part of not just esports, but just competitive situations in general. You have to be resilient in your victories because nothing is going to come easy. Looking at the first map, which was Bind, which was 100 Thieves' pick, they won the first 7 rounds in a row, 9-3 at the half. Didn't give Lev anything during the second half. They win the first 4, and yeah, 13-3. It was just an absolute stomping. It looked like this match might be over very quickly, and that would just be crazy because we just had the G2 just dominate crew. So are both Latin American teams going to just absolutely collapse? Well, no, but actually kind of yes, but not on Sunset. Leviatan on their map pick do win this one 14-12 in overtime, 8-4 at the half in favor of Leviatan. They go on a couple nice win streaks, but then 100 Thieves were showing that resilience. They go on a 6-round win streak, only allowing Lev one other after that, and that does tie up the game 12-12. Then going into overtime, Leviatan were able to weather the storm and stop 100 Thieves in their tracks, changing the momentum of that map, and it really did look like 100 Thieves were going to take this. They had all the momentum going into overtime, but Lev were able to calm it down, and they were able to win. Then we have Icebox, which was very, very close, 13-10 in favor of 100 Thieves. Even though map 2 went into overtime, this one felt a lot closer than the second map. 6-6 at the half, so tied game going into the second half, and 100 Thieves on their tech side, they get it done. Looking at the team MVPs, I could have put Cryo again. He had a fantastic match, but I decided to go with Asuna, who did top frag. 60 kills, 46 deaths, 14 assists for plus 14. Fantastic, just absolute chef's kiss. And on the side of Leviatan, who else but Aspas, 55, 49, and 14 for plus 6, which honestly, this might be his worst game of the entire split, and yet he still nearly gets 60 kills. This man is a monster, and he's basically the reason why this game was even close. He did have a bad first map, but his second and third maps were much better than that, so it's hard to see this team doing anything without him. So for 100 Thieves, just like G2, I'm incredibly happy to see them here. And for any LATAM fans watching this video and they're like, oh, you're saying that because you're biased towards North Americans. Not really. I don't really care about the whole region thing. I do like the North American teams better than the other teams, but I've been a supporter of Crew for quite a while. I'm not a huge fan of them or anything, but I've seen this team go through some insane ups and downs, and I would love to see them at Shanghai. And for Leviatan, who doesn't want to see Aspas at Shanghai absolutely frying everything, even if he doesn't win the thing? I just like it when a story like 100 Thieves ends up being successful, because this team, just like G2, they've gone through the ringer. They have had a bit more success than G2 has. They had a roster of like retired C9 pros in 2021 that ended up winning First Strike, sure, but they haven't had really much success since then. They've been to a couple tournaments here and there. They were in champions in 2022, but this team has consistently fallen flat when it matters most. And now that we're seeing them taking the opportunity with teams like Sentinels struggling, potentially taking that mantle as the best North American team, Busio giving this team just absolutely exactly what they needed. Cryo, huge bounce back season from him. Asuna, huge bounce back season from him so far. This team looked down and out early in the year. Now they looked like one of the best teams in the league, and I am just so happy to see it. And for Leviatan, as I said, I would love to see Aspas at an international tournament yet again. He's always extremely electric, extremely exciting to watch. I do think he's the best player in the world. This team has had a very good split, but they're still in a learning process. They haven't lost a ton yet, and that can kind of hurt teams, because if you're just winning over and over again, when you get to these high stakes moments, you can maybe come in a little bit cocky, or maybe feeling the pressure of being, the expected winner. And that could definitely hurt teams. And maybe that's what happened here. 100 Thieves just seemed a lot hungrier, a lot more ready for this match. And Leviatan, they didn't make it easy on them. They still played very well. This absolutely could have gone their way. So we'll see what they do against Crew. That's going to be a very tough matchup, especially since how we've seen those two teams play each other so far this year. So very interested to see how it goes, but either way, we're either getting Kesnet or Aspas at Shanghai, and that's going to be incredible. If you're a Latin fan, at least be happy that you're going to get at least one Latin American team in there, even if you don't see Leviatan as a Latin American team anymore, because they only have like 2 players. But either way, it's going to be very interesting to see which one of those 2 teams qualify. So moving on to the Friday games, we have G2 versus 100 Thieves. So whoever makes this one makes it to the grand final, and then whoever wins that grand final, they do get the 3 championship points. But Riot announced this, they also get to choose their opponent going into Shanghai, which is a very good advantage. So I'm very glad that Riot is giving these teams incentives to try really hard at the end of these regional tournaments after qualification, because that was kind of a problem last year where teams would kind of take their foot off the gas once they qualified because it just didn't matter. But now there's an incentive, and this match between G2 and 100 Thieves should be very interesting. 100 Thieves did win the first matchup between these 2 teams earlier in the year, and I will be picking them again. I do think that they're better than G2, even though G2 look very good right now. And then the next game, I've already talked about it a bit, Leviatan versus Crew. I am going to pick Leviatan for this one. I do kind of hope it's Crew because I've seen Crew just go through a lot of pain. Not that Leviatan hasn't, but I just think with Pass, with the skill level that we've seen from Leviatan, that they're going to just fuel off of their loss and just be able to push their way through. But I do think it's going to be a very close match. So that is all we have to talk about today. Let me know what you guys thought of these matches so far in the comment section down below, and anything else you want to talk about. Please click like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.